Nice. Works for me. Works for me. Well, let's like tentatively get started. Um, because I wanted to ask first, like, did anybody like go take the tests or read up on numbers? Like, did you figure out what you are or what you think you are? A 4?
I
Does it feel right?
depending on the test, I'm either a 4 or a 7, but usually a 4.
Okay. Okay. That makes some sense. And you can, after you read a little more on them, you might have a little more clarity on which one makes more sense for you.
I thought I was an 8 because I had done one of these like a year ago, and
Yeah.
then I took the one you suggested. I'm totally an 8. There's
Yeah,
no
well-
denying it.
Well, when you said 8 before, I was like, what I know about you, like that feels like that makes sense. Like I could see that. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I think it's
Oh, no, I
of
love
all
being
these
an 8.
numbers. Yeah, I'm the same way. Because like 3s get a bad rap, but I love being a 3. So in a similar way that 8s get a bad rap. So I get it. I totally get it.
Yes. Well, even, and it's
Which
funny
test
because
recommend?
Which test do I recommend? Did you get those materials that I had? It's the link is in there. It's yourenneagramcoach.com.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one.
because I listened to your last video, and when it said like this is what you are and you don't change, or this for the whole life, when I was 16 through 30, I worked at JC Penney's, and when I was like 16, 17, one of my managers in my review called me the leader of the bad kids, because anytime they asked us to do anything, I challenged it. Like I was like, why are we doing that? Can we not do that a better way? This is a better way. And so it's funny because when I was reading through all the things, I was like, yeah, this has been going on for years.
Totally. Yeah, and I can look back into my childhood and see some very 3 things. Like very, very, very 3 things. Like I am still bothered to this day. This is a little side story. When I was in probably 1st grade, I think, I went to my grandmother's Sunday school class that she taught at her church. And the Bible study was on Abraham. And she asked if anyone knew who Abraham was. And I said, yes, he was one of our presidents. And she was like, well, that was Abraham Lincoln. But yes, that is an Abraham. And like, that still haunts me because I looked stupid. It doesn't really, but like, I remember that. Like, it stood out in my mind because it was a time that I like failed, you know? And like, crazy stuff. So, Margaret, I'm going to mute you for just a second while we talk about some more stuff. So, yeah, you're fine. Just the audio is nice and clear, but y'all feel free to unmute at any time to throw anything in. Like, that's not a problem at all in the slightest. But so kind of along what we were just talking about, like, I think one of the things that like is pretty common is for people to go through a point in time where they're like, oh my gosh, my number is the absolute worst. Like, I hate this number. Like, this is all the negative things about the number. I think I've done that a little bit with mine because 3s get a reputation for being disingenuous and for being manipulative and arrogant. And I can be those things. Sure, like I'll own it. I can be all those things. But there are really good qualities about being a 3 that I really, really love and I really, really cherish. And we'll talk a little bit in a second about like levels of health. And that is something that we can affect, like how good or bad our perception of our number is like how healthy we are within those numbers. So if you go through a period of time where you're like, oh my gosh, like I would give anything not to be a 5, then that is very, very normal, very, very common. Or like, you're like, I just wish I could be a 6. Like, I'd love to be a 6. Everybody has those, but unfortunately we are what we are. And we can all work toward being more Anybody read like the Divergent books? Do you know what I'm talking about? The Divergent series? Yeah. So it's like all about being like all of those things. Like we work toward that because we want to pull the good from all the numbers. We want to be that, but like we have our ego has its core number that it works from, and that's not going to change. We just have to find the good in that and find like the strengths in that and then work from those. Okay, so my boyfriend Greg actually tuned in. I think he's listening right now too. I don't think he's video listening, but I think he's listening. But he tuned in last week and he had a really good question about something that I didn't make very clear, which was what is the difference between levels of health and then the like stress and growth number situation, which can be very, very confusing. And so I was trying to think of a good analogy for it. It's like, I think a good way to think of it is like your levels of health are within your one number. It's variations and like degrees within your one number. And so like we can talk a little bit more about this when we talk about the number, like the threes in just a second, because I can tell you a lot about that. And then stress and growth are like outside things kind of coming in that could affect it. So it'd be like stress and growth would be like, I am hitting you in the arm and now your arm hurts, versus your arm is broken and that is why your arm hurts. Does that help clear anything up? I don't know if that makes it clearer or not, but if you go to the Enneagram Institute website, it has descriptions of all the numbers and it has descriptions of all the levels of health.
Say that.
So I was saying like if my arm is broken, it hurts. My arm is broken. I did it, right? That's my level of health. But if somebody's punching me in the arm, that's a stressor. Like that's making my arm hurt because it's coming from the outside. I don't know if that's a good analogy. It was just the first one that popped into my head. So we're going to go with it for now.
So what you're saying is health is an internal factor and stressors are external factors.
I don't know if it always breaks down that cleanly, but I think that that's a good starting place to work from, right? So like I would say we are all in a time of stress right now. Like we are more than likely all moving toward our stress numbers in some form or fashion. But our health, it may be affecting our health, but that's not necessarily the same reaction. So like I said, I can explain this a whole lot more when I talk about threes, because I know what a really unhealthy 3 versus a really healthy 3 looks like. And we can explain that maybe a little bit clearer than it currently is. But for the most part, does that make sense right now? Yeah, cool. Okay, I'm gonna try to share my screen really quickly and we can go back to where are we at? Whoop. I don't think I have the right thing up. Hang on 1 second. Let me pull the right. Yeah, I don't. That's why. Okay. Okay. So this is like, sorry, emails coming in. This is like we talked about last week. This is the basic Enneagram diagram thing. It's going to show you what the numbers that you're going to in stress and going to in growth. So this is in that little slide thing that I shared last week. But so the pink arrow is what you go to in stress. The white arrow is what you go to in growth. And then we'll just go talk about each of the numbers again. Let me see. Okay, so we talked about, I'm going to just kind of skim through 1s and 2s really quickly because we talked about them last week, and then we'll keep going with the rest of them. So we talked about type 1 is the reformer, the perfectionist, the like everything is black and white, very principled. In growth, they go to 7, which is going to make them more spontaneous and joyful and fun, life of a party kind of people. In stress, they're going to become more like a 4, which is going to make them more moody, irrational, a little more wallow in your feelings kind of reaction to things. So that's a 1. The 2 is the giver, the helper. They want to be known and loved for the way they can help other people. In growth, they're going to become more like a 4, and they're going to become a little more self-nurturing, not just I got to focus on everybody else and that's how I get love. And then they're going to become a little more emotionally aware. In stress, they're going to become more like an 8, and they're going to become more aggressive, more dominating, a little more resentful if their help isn't recognized. So that is the 2. Okay, so now let's talk about 3s. Oh goodness. Okay, so what it's like to be a 3. It's important for me to come across as a winner. I love walking in a room and knowing I'm making a great first impression on the crowd. I could persuade Bill Gates to buy a Mac. The keys to my happiness are efficiency, productivity, and being acknowledged as the best. I don't like it when people slow me down. I know how to airbrush failure so it looks like success. I'd rather lead than follow any day. I am competitive to a fault. I can find a way to win over and connect with just about anyone. I'm a world champion multitasker. I keep a close watch on how people are responding to me in the moment. It's hard for me to not take work along on vacation. It's hard for me to name or access my feelings. I'm not one to talk much about my personal life. Sometimes I feel like a phony. I love setting and accomplishing measurable goals. I like other people to know about my accomplishments. I like to be seen in the company of successful people. I don't mind cutting corners if it gets the job done more efficiently. And people say I don't know how or when to stop working. So, like I've said before, I am almost a textbook 3. Almost every single one of these things applies to me. Not entirely.
Now, see, a lot
but
of that
sounds like you. So this is something to pay attention
Yeah.
to. What we talked about last week with the wings. If you are a 4, you're going to have a 3 wing, and a lot of those things are going to apply. But it could also be that you are a 3 with a pretty strong 4 wing, and so those things may have come through in the test. So as we talk about 3s and 4s, you might like kind of look at it and see like what feels more accurate. I'll also say that sometimes it's easy for me to help somebody identify what their number is by looking at how they act in stress and how they act when things are good. Sometimes those numbers and those reactions can be really helpful in figuring out what your number is. So like I would say for me, most of these things, like I said, most of these things apply. I would say I've gotten pretty decent at identifying and accessing my feelings. I don't really think that that's much of an issue for me anymore. Not anymore. I'm sure it is from time to time, but that's not like, a huge thing about my identity. There was another one that I was like, no, that is so not me. I'm not one to talk much about my personal life. I'll talk about my personal life a lot. I don't know, like that's just not a thing for me. I don't know. Maybe it's just because that's part of this like persona that I've created for myself, is that I will share about my life, I don't know. But the 3 is the achiever or the performer. So you're gonna see a lot of those people in the theater world, lots. Very success oriented, driven, like their basic fear is being worthless, and the basic desire is to feel valued and worthwhile, like feeling like we have a purpose, feeling like people appreciate us for what we do. Like I will tell you that I still don't understand. It still doesn't make sense to me that like I place so much importance on achievement and other people don't. It doesn't make sense to me. My brain doesn't function that way. I get that is how people are, but I don't understand it. I think it's great. I kind of wish I wasn't as driven by it, but it makes sense. It doesn't make sense to me that other people aren't, if that makes sense. In growth, when times are good and things are trucking along, a 3 is going to look more like a 6. So they're going to become more cooperative and more focused on others and on others succeeding and not just like their own success. But in stress, 3s look like 9s, which is to become like disengaged and apathetic. And I think I said this last week, like when I get stressed out, the only thing I want to do is take a nap. I just want to go to sleep. I just want to get away from the whole situation. I don't want to engage it at all. I just want to back away and take a nap. It is my first instinct always. And so I am a classic 3. But when you look at levels of health versus this growth and stress thing, I think a super healthy 3 has identified that like they are a leader, but they have to be aware of others as well. And they have to focus on like a team success, not just their own success. They are, threes can be known as chameleons and like adapt to the room, and like I can be whoever you need me to be, and I definitely feel that in myself, but it can come off as like being fake. A healthy three is going to be able to do that and still feel very genuine to the people that they are with. But an unhealthy three, when you start sliding down that scale of health, it is going to be very, I'm going to tell you whatever you want to hear so that I can get whatever I need. I'm willing to lie. I'm willing to stretch the truth. An unhealthy three is going to be so driven by success and achievement that if they don't get that success and achievement, their world is shattered. It is rattled. It is shaken. They can't handle it. So there's the like levels of health, and that really has nothing to do with growth and stress. Does that make sense? The way I'm explaining that a little bit more. So like it's this level here versus then you've got these outside things coming in, and so like in a time of real stress, I'm gonna back off and just like step away from everything and not accomplish anything. So maybe that helps a lot, or maybe it doesn't. Know. Okay, so fours. Let's talk about fours. Two of my best friends are fours, and sometimes like threes and fours don't always see eye to eye, and we can talk about why later. But we like to joke about our threeness and our fourness conflicting. So fours. I like things that are unconventional, dramatic, and refined. I'm definitely not a fan of the ordinary. I never really felt like I belonged. I have so many feelings in a day, it's hard to know which ones to pay attention to first. Some people think I'm aloof, but I'm really just unique. In social situations, I tend to hang back and wait for others to approach me. Melancholy is comfortable for me, so it's annoying when people try to cheer me up. I'm not like everyone else. Phew. I'm very sensitive to criticism. It takes a while to get over it. I spend a lot of time trying to explain myself. When people tell me what to do, I'm often tempted to do the opposite. Sometimes I disappear and go radio silent for a few days. I'm okay with sad songs, sad stories, and sad movies. Overly happy people give me a headache. I feel there's something essential lacking in me. It's really hard for me to settle into a relationship because I'm always looking for my ideal soulmate. I'm self-conscious. It's hard for me to find my place in a room full of people. People say I'm too intense and my feelings overwhelm them. I'm either an artist or highly creative. I come up with one amazing creative idea after another. Lots of people misunderstand me, which frustrates me. I pull people in, but then I get nervous and push them away, and I worry a lot about abandonment. So like I said, you're going to get a lot of teachers in the 1, 2, 3 range, and then you get a lot of theater people in the 2, 3, 4, or even 3, 4, 5 range. So a lot of us are living on this side of the circle. But the 4 is going to be the romantic or the individualist. They are withdrawn, expressive, dramatic, and then the negative ones would be self-absorbed, temperamental. Their basic fear is being insignificant, and their basic desire is to feel uniquely themselves. So like their basic fear is to be like everyone else. They don't want to be like everyone else. 4s want to be unique. They want to feel like their story is happening to only them. And that can sound really negative. It's not, but it is very identifiable of a 4. In growth, when things are good, they're going to look more like a 1, and they become a little more objective. They can take emotion out of the picture a little bit more and like rationalize things out without the emotion as much, and they're going to become more principled. In stress, they become more like a 2, and they get over involved with people and like really cling to people and really need them, which, you know, depending on who they're dealing with, can become like a little overbearing. The 4 is going to be like the cliche of all the memes is that the 4 is the one like staring out the window with it raining and like listening to a sad song and just absolutely loving that and like taking in all the emotion, like lots of artsy types. Like I said, 2 of my absolute best friends are 4s, and sometimes because of 3, we haven't talked about like responses to like emotion, but a 3 kind of rationalizes emotion out. Like we don't have really time for it. We like it can't get in the way of productivity, and like we got to like make things happen. Like sorry, we don't have time for that. A 4 just wants to feel everything. So one of those friends that I'm talking about was my co-director in Waco. So as you can imagine, we butted heads in the rehearsal process sometimes. And we didn't know all of this when we were working together. And like afterwards, we we're like, why didn't we know this before so that we could, it would have helped so much if we would have like processed through these things in a different way. It would have been super helpful. But yeah. Any questions on any of that so far? Anybody want to jump in with anything? No? Good, cool. Okay. All right. Fives. I'll tell you right. Oh yeah, go ahead.
So I just took their test.
Yeah. 4. Do those
Yeah,
things
4.
do those things feel accurate?
Yeah, 4 with a strong 7.
It had 7 as the second. Yeah. So okay. So when we get to 7, then we'll look at it too and see how you feel about those things. Because like you could have. So like I feel like I'm a 3 with some 7 tendencies for sure. And so if that's the case, that would be what it is. But like your wing is on either side of you, so you would have. If you're a 4, you've got a 3 wing and a 5 wing, which would make sense for you, I think. But you, not me. I shouldn't be typing you. But
I don't know. You know me fairly well.
but you could have a lot of 7 tendencies also, which I see in you as well. So 5s are probably the ones that I know the least about, and it's because I have had a couple of students that are 5s, I think. But other than that, like I don't really know 5s, and so I haven't seen them in action. Like I know most of these other numbers because I can relate it to someone else that I know, but I don't really know any 5s. So here's what it's like to be a 5. I can take care of myself and think others could do the same. I don't always say things out loud, but in my head, I am pretty sarcastic and cynical. I often feel awkward around other people. I'm okay if people ask me a few questions about myself, but I don't like it when people want too much information. I need time alone. Hold on, sorry, y'all. I'm gonna mute this while I cough for just. Excuse me. It's just allergies. I promise. If I want people to know how I feel, I will tell them. I think that thoughts are more reliable than feelings. I need a couple of days to process an experience or know how I feel about something. People are wasteful. I hold on to what I have. Often I find that I would rather observe than participate. I trust myself. That means I think about things for a while and then I make my own decisions. I can't understand why people get together to hang out. I'm a listener. I have to be very careful with my time and energy. I get tired when I have to be with people for too long. I often felt invisible as a child. Sometimes as an adult, I choose to be invisible. Sometimes I think I should be more generous. It's hard for me. In groups, being uninformed makes me uncomfortable. I don't like big social gatherings. I'd rather be with a few people, and material possessions don't make me happy. So I don't remember if we talked about this last week or not, but like the Enneagram doesn't care about introverts versus extroverts. Like you could be any number and be either one of them. That being said, there are some that tend more toward one side than the other. So you're going to have more 3s that are extroverts, more 8s that are extroverts than introverts. A 5, you're going to have a lot of 5s that are introverts, big time. Now, is it possible to have an extroverted 5? Yes, but it would be unusual. Just in the same way that like a 7, most of the time are going to be extroverts, but I know at least one introverted 7. And so it's different, but it exists. Okay, so 5 is the observer or the investigator. They are cerebral, they're perceptive, they're the researcher, they're going to go find out all the stuff, but they're very withdrawn, very like to themselves. Their basic fear is being useless or incapable, and their basic desire is to be capable and competent. So I was laughing at one point. I was saying, well, I feel that way. Like as a 3, I want to be capable. I said, I want to be seen as capable. And then I was like, oh yeah. I want to be seen as capable. It doesn't matter if I'm actually capable or not. I just want people to see me as capable. A 5 actually wants to be capable. Like they need to know how to do the things. They're going to figure it out if they don't know how. And they're going to be the ones that if nobody else can do it, they can. In growth, they look like an 8, so they become more confident and decisive, and they can like, instead of like pulling back and being more to themselves, they can like step forward and like be a little more assertive. But in stress, they're gonna look more like a 7. Oh, okay, we've only got 10 minutes left, so we'll finish talking about this. So they're gonna look more like a 7, and they're gonna be a little more scattered, a little more hyperactive, than they might be otherwise. So yeah, again, I don't know a lot of fives. I don't know any fives personally, really. So it's interesting. I'd love to sit down and talk with a five. I did listen to Sleeping at Last is a band that I really like, and they have written a song for every single Enneagram number, and it is fascinating. They have the song in a podcast for every single number. So you should totally listen to them. And I listened to the one on fives, and it really was really, really fascinating. And the song and the way they created the song for fives, so super cool. Yeah. I think we can talk about six really quick. If we get cut off, we get cut off, and we'll pick back up next week at some point. So let's talk about six really quick. Okay. I'm always imagining and planning for the worst. I often don't trust people who are in authority. People say I'm loyal, understanding, funny, and compassionate. Most of my friends don't have as much anxiety as I do. I act quickly in a crisis, but when things settle down, I fall apart. When my partner and I are doing really well in our relationship, I wonder what will happen to spoil it. Being sure I've made the right decision is impossible. I'm aware that fear has dictated many of my choices. I don't like to find myself in unpredictable situations. I find it hard to stop thinking about the things I'm worried about. I'm generally not comfortable with extremes. I usually have so much to do, it's hard for me to finish tasks. I'm most comfortable when I'm around people who are pretty much like me. People tell me I can be overly pessimistic. I am slow to start, and once I do get started, I find myself continuing to think about what could go wrong. I don't trust people who give me many compliments. It helps me to have things in some kind of order. I like to be told I'm good at my job, but I get very nervous when my boss wants to add to my responsibilities. I have to know people for a long time before I can really trust them, and I am skeptical of things that are new and unknown. So 6 is the loyalist and the questioner. So it's a little bit different from the challenger, which is the 8, but the 6 is committed. They're security oriented. I'm going to skip down. Their basic fear is like not having the support that they need, not having the support system that they need. And their basic desire is to feel secure and stable. So they will often question the authority of people that are in leadership over them, but they may not challenge it as much as an 8. They just don't trust it as much as everyone else. So they're not always as trusting. They're more anxious and more worried than most. In growth, they look like a 9. So they relax a little bit. They become a little more optimistic, a little more trusting, a little more willing to like go with the flow. In stress, they become more like a 3, and they can become very like self-focused and like got to get mine and competitive, a little more arrogant. My sister-in-law is a 6, and it always just makes me laugh that like at her worst, she is like me, and at my best, I am like her. And so I always like, I'm just aspiring to be like Courtney. But yeah, so that is the 6. So I think we only, okay, we have like 6 minutes left. So anybody have any thoughts or things they want to talk about or questions or anything? I think we can save 7, 8, and 9 for next time.
Hey, so like, do you recommend that I go back and take the YourEnneagramCoach.com?
Do it, yeah, do it and see what it says. See what it says.
Like the 2 tests that I've taken basically said I'm a 7, the enthusiast.
Yeah.
But, like, I haven't read enough about it to like really.
Yeah, do that and go.
understand.
Yeah, I would say take it. Why not? You know, just see what it says, and then go to the Enneagram Institute and read up on the 7 and see if that feels right.
Enneagram Institute, and that's.
I just Googled it, but I think it's EnneagramInstitute.com. Yeah.
Okay.
Because again, it's really more of like looking at it, looking at the things about each of them, and then like, does this feel right? Does this not? And so Gina, I'd say do the same thing. Go to the Enneagram Institute, read about the 4, read about the 7, see what it says. And again, like sometimes it's helpful to figure out like, okay, when I am really stressed out, how do I respond? Like what number do I look like? And like, if I look like a 2 when I'm stressed out, then maybe I am a 4. Maybe that is what it is, you know?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's just fun.
No,
Yeah.
I'm excited about this.
Hi, Nina.
How are you?
I'm
Hi,
good.
Tina.
Yeah.
I'm good. Well, cool. Is there like a certain day, like to at least finish up the numbers? Is there a certain day you guys would want to do that?
I say as long as it's in the afternoon, we're good.
I was gonna say, maybe not on Monday next time, but like, I mean, like today obviously was fine, but like, this is like one of my 3 Zoom meetings today.
Yeah, I know. Well, and then next week we have to start doing our Zoom meetings on Mondays. So no,
so-
I don't think Monday will be what we do, but maybe like Tuesday or Wednesday we can make it happen. Next week. Yeah. Cool.
Yep.
Well, good to see
3:30
y'all.
is better for me. All my classes go till 3.
Okay. Well, maybe we can scoot it to 3:30 or something. Maybe we can make it
Yeah,
happen.
no, I'm good with 3:30, and then Wednesday would be probably better for me. I mean,
Okay,
like
maybe we can do like
it's
Wednesday.
like in the middle of the week.
Yeah, not this week, but next week we can do Wednesday at 3:30. That'd be fun. Cool.
Awesome.
All right. Well,
Thank you.
good to see you all. I'm gonna post it. I'm gonna do. I don't know if anybody watched. I mean, a few people watched the last one. So.
I watched it.
Yep. All right. Well, it was fun to see y'all. Hope you're all doing okay.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, bye, y'all.
Bye. Happy
Bye.
birthday, Kaylin.
Happy
Happy
birthday.
birthday.